والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. وقل رب زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا وآمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ثم اتقوا وآمنوا ثم اتقوا وأحسنوا والله يحب المحسنين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا ليبلونكم الله بشيء من الصيد تناله أيديكم ورماحكم ليعلم الله من يخافه بالغيب فمن اعتدى بعد ذلك فله عذاب أليم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقتلوا الصيد وأنتم حرم ومن قتله منكم متعمدا فجزاء مثل ما قتل من النعم يحكم به ذو عدل منكم هديا بالغ الكعبة أو كفارة طعام مساكين أو وعدل ذلك صياما يذوق وبال أمره عفى الله عما سلف ومن عاد فينتقم الله منه والله عزيز ذو انتقام. أحل لكم صيد البحر وطعامه متاعا لكم وللسيارة وحرم عليكم صيد البر ما دمتم حرما واتقوا الله الذي إليه تحشرون. صدق الله العظيم. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with more details in terms of halal and haram, and these ayats have to do with the game or the animals, the wild animals which are to be hunted, which are generally hunted. While number one is in the state of ihram after wearing the clothes of ihram and intending to perform hajj or umrah and entering into the state of ihram, which is actually a state, an inward state, and then it manifests by outward injunctions as well. Also, this, as we mentioned earlier, it also deals with the injunctions of the animals, any wild animals which reside within the precincts of the haram. But before this is mentioned, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as we heard earlier, that the prohibition of the wine and gambling and Islam and the worship, idolatry of all types and forms was totally forbidden. So now, as we also mentioned, that drinking was a very prevalent habit of the Arabs, and everyone was pretty much involved in that with very few exceptions, our Prophet ﷺ being one of them. So when this injunction came down, people were worried, as we mentioned, that even up to the Battle of Uhud, they had their morning, preparations, as it were, and as they used to do before they used to enter into the war. That used to be their habit. So so many people actually passed away, they were martyred, etc., before this injunction, and they had been drinking wine because it wasn't forbidden. So what about them? So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lays to rest that concern. ليس على الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات جناح فيما طعموا إذا ما اتقوا وآمنوا وعملوا الصالحات ثم اتقوا وآمنوا ثم اتقوا وأحسنوا. So there's not upon those people who have believed and they do righteous works any haraj, there's no recourse, there's no sin upon them regarding that which they had taken in terms of food or drink, which was previously haram, and then it became, it was previously halal, and then it was forbidden thereafter. And if they died before that prohibition came, no harm, no sin upon them. They were not liable for that. And the condition is, إِذَا مَتَّقَوْا وَآمَنُوا, if they had actually been observing taqwa and observing iman and doing righteous action. ثُمَّ اتَّقَوْا وَآمَنُوا, and then they further exercise taqwa, further exercise iman, ثُمَّ اتَّقَوْا وَآمَنُوا, and then continue to remain consistent in the implementation of taqwa, and ultimately, doing everything in a state of excellence. وَأَحْسَنُوا. So we see here that actually there's a continuous process of refinement. And as we mentioned earlier, that the rules of Sharia also apply or were applied after this process of refinement, which is better known as tazkiyah. So here we see the order of taqwa, that these people would observe taqwa, they would do righteous deeds, they would further continue in the path of taqwa, continue in the strengthening of their iman, and further they would continue to taqwa until ultimately they would reach to the level of ihsan. As Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, the excellence in ibadah is to worship Allah as though we see Him. So this is also kind of mentioning that process. And so here, thereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions the rules and regulations of game in the state of ihram, and also game within the precincts of the haram. So we'll just mention the basic translation of these ayat. The injunctions are a bit more lengthy. We'll talk about that tomorrow, inshallah. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala again, as is the Quranic method, addressing the people of Iman, O you people of Iman who have believed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to test you with something of these game animals. Because that was, number one, it was a means of sustenance, and number two, those who have engaged in hunting, it's a kind of a passion also. It's a kind of people like to hunt. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put that in perhaps the survival instinct. So in any case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the state of ihram, or when you're in the precincts of ihram, you're going to see game, right? And see. Now the people of the Jewish community we mentioned earlier, they were tested like that on the Sabbath, and the fish would come you remember that? The fish would come on the surface. So okay, what do we do? Let's have a plan. We'll put the nets before the Sabbath, and we'll catch them, and then after the Sabbath we'll pull them in. So, of course, Sahaba didn't resort to anything like that. They took the injunction 100% for what it implied. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we are definitely going to test you and see something in terms of this type of game that you could have otherwise caught with your hands. It could have been brought in by the use of your spears, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may come to know that who fears Him in the unseen. And of course comes to know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows everything even since before the beginning of time. So come to know, meaning that it will manifest, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring into manifestation, it will become apparent in the real world, that as to who actually fears and who doesn't fear, according to the actions that will manifest thereafter, upon that examination. فَمَنْ يَعْتَدَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ فَلَهُ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. And so who will transgress after this? In other words, after this injunction has been made clear, for him is a severe punishment, a very painful punishment. And again, O you people who believe, لَا تَقْتُلُوا الصَّيْدَ وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمٌ. Do not kill the game animals, and you are hurum. You are in the state of ihram, either being in the state of ihram or in the precincts of haram. And again, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لَا تَقْتُلُوا الصَّيْدَ وَأَنْتُمْ حُرُمٌ وَمَنْ قَتَلَهُ مِنْكُمْ. And who would ever do so intentionally, فَجَزَاءٌ مِثْلُ مَا قَتَلَ مِنَ النَّعَمِ. So whoever would kill such animals intentionally, there's going to be a kafara, there's going to be an expiation that they have to present, and we'll talk about that in detail tomorrow. And it will be from the various slaughtered animals that need to be slaughtered in correlation to what was killed in terms of the game animals. We'll describe that more tomorrow. And this should be judged by two persons of dhawi adl, two persons who are just, pious, they know, they have understanding of this situation, and they would give the order, or they would say that, yeah, this is the value of this game that was killed was such, and so you need to give such and such expiation. And this for what? لِيَذُوقَ وَبَالَ أَمْرِ. So that you would taste from the consequence of your bad actions. عَفَى اللَّهُ عَمَّا سَلَفَ. As for that which took place before these injunctions were revealed, that's excused. Similarly, like the wine and the gambling and all those things that were done before the injunctions came down. وَمَنْ عَادَ فَيَنْتَقِمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ. As for those who return back to these practices and do not abstain, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take retribution from him, And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Azizun Duntiqam. He's quite powerful and capable of taking retribution from whomsoever He wishes, and He does when He sees appropriate. However, the game of the sea, that's lawful, and so fishing is lawful. You can take any of the sea animals which are halal. You can take them and you can hunt them as well. Mata'an lakum lis-sayyara, as a facility for you and for those who are in travel. وَحُرِمَ عَلَيْكُمْ صَيْدُ الْبَحْرِ, and again Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala re-emphasizes that as for the sayd, or the game of the land, then it is haram upon you, مَا دُمْتُمْ حُرْمًا, as long as you're in the state of ihram or you are in the precincts of the haram. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ, so fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that taqwa, the one to whom you will ultimately be gathered for recompense and for accountability. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to understand and apply. Tomorrow inshallah we'll look at some more details regarding this kafara. Subhanakallah bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta